Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the June training. Today, we are excited to show off a review of our recently released user-defined fields. This will allow the department to create its own data points to not only be viewable within the different areas of Streamline, but also allow for the collection of data both within the admin website and within the while inspecting on the mobile app. The user-defined fields will be available in the admin tab within Streamline, meaning that only users that have the administrator role will have access to this area. You can see here it's at the top and far right. I'm going to go ahead and select it. Once we have selected user-defined fields as we need to select a module to work with on the left. Being the first release of this module, we have property, inspection, permit, and complex available. Once we have selected a module, we can begin creating our form. As of now, we have set a limit of 10 items to be used in each module. So in total, 40 defined fields will be at max, but it is likely to be increased after we evaluate the usage and impact of this module within the system. We can see below the modules here, there are different types of fields that can be used as of now. Let's go ahead and select the property module, which we can see we already have some data points laid out. To add a field, you can simply left click and drag text field to add in an item. This can be used to The text field specifically can be used to outline simple items that are around a sentence. You can think of this similar to street name or inspection type in the current grids. Now that we have brought this field over, we're going to be prompted with a few items for configuration. Real quick, let me go ahead and get rid of this field. As we can see, I already had this one added. We're going to recreate it. So the first item for the configuration is going to be the label. So in this case, we're going to put on-site manager, and this is simply the way that the label will show up in the properties area. Moving down, we have the data ID field. This is an item that will be automatically generated and will be used to identify this specific data point. This will be used by our team in order to reference the stored data when creating custom reports, so that you will not need to worry about dealing with this item. The next is the required field. This is an item that anytime there is interaction with the property, whether it's within admin or an inspection, this field must be updated accordingly if it hasn't been already. This will make sure that data collection is assured, but in cases where there could be no answer to this item, it could cause an interruption to inspection, so be mindful when selecting this. The next item is going to be default value, which will automatically appear in the field that has not had any data input yet. So, if we were to put none, for example, anytime that we would see this field on a new property or to a property that hasn't had anything input for it, then none's going to show. Do keep in mind that required field is enabled and you have populated the default value field as well. It will satisfy that required condition. So it is recommended to have one or the other as to not cause configuration issues. Since we did not select required field, we have none populated. Next is going to be tooltip. This is the option that appears when hovering over the item in the admin site. For this field, we're going to go ahead and put in a note of please input the on-site manager's name. Lastly, the next two items are linked together, that being the include in column chooser and the grid label. If you select include in column chooser, then this data point will be available in the associated grids for the module. So in this case, we would be able to see this as a column in the properties grids, or any other grid that uses the same lookups. If you have selected this option, we will also need to give this field a specific name. In this case, we're just going to go ahead and copy the label and go ahead and put it in there. If you do not wish for a specific item to be in the column chooser, then you will not have to fill in the grid label field. Similar to the limit of total fields you can have in one module, we have limited the total amount of column chooser options to be 3 per module, for a total of 12, with a possible increase coming into the future. So after we have gone through our configuration and we like it, we can go ahead and hit save at the bottom. Moving forward, the second item is going to be numbers. I'm going to go ahead and edit this field. We can see the configuration get pulled up, just like when we were adding a new custom field. So this area is similar to street number and number of units, as it just shows a number for this item. In the configuration, we can see many of the same items as before, with a few exceptions for the specifics for the number. That would be down here, we can see minimum value and maximum value. These are both used to keep the input value between the desired acceptable range. The allow negative controls whether a negative is allowed or not, and the decimal option is going to control how many decimals can be placed. Setting this field to 0, as you can see here, will allow no decimal values. I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel because we didn't change anything. The next item is going to be multi-line text. This will be used for outlining large bodies of text. In this configuration, one item that you can see missing is the include in column chooser. This is due to the increased limit of characters for this field and the possible size that it would take up. I think if it's going to be up to 40,000 characters, so there's a lot of text that can be shown here, but once again, it's way too much to be able to show in a grid. Next item is going to be number of rows. This configuration will be the amount of space that will be used in the form itself, which we will see here in a little bit. And lastly, max characters. It controls how many that we can have in total. All right. Fourth item is going to be the date field, which allows a date to be inputted. Similar to the previous item, this cannot be added into the column chooser, but unlike multi-line text, this will be added in a later release. We can also include time to be added for more specific scenarios. Lastly, we're going to review the true and false field. Now, this is a simple yes or no item. Now, while we're here, this default value will actually control what is, once again, the default. Now that I have it selected as yes, that means all the items will by default generate as yes. If I deselect it and save, all items that haven't been changed will show a default of false. And once again, we have our tooltip, column chooser options, and then the gridlet. Now, one additional item here is that while on the admin website, this will be shown as a checkbox, but on the mobile app, it'll be shown as toggled. They still handle the same way, just two different views of the same item. All right, now that we've created our form outline, we can check out a preview of what it would look like by selecting the preview form option here at the bottom. What you may notice is that the layout will follow the order that we had the fields in before. At the top, we had risk type, and number of buildings, on-site manager notes, so on and so forth. And you can even see there's an outline for items that are specifically not available for the column chooser. Go ahead and close. If you would like to move and shift the placement of each item, you can do this. And we have our move up and our move down functions. And very straightforward, move them up or down. I check preview, now moves it around. And go ahead and set that back the way we had before. All right, so before we leave here, I've already made an outline for both permits and inspection defined fields as well. We can see that here. For our inspections, we have a true or false of is it billable, and then the number of fire drills since last inspection. We run over here to permits. We're going to see the number of hoses is going to be a permit question. So, and of course, we have our delete form item here at the bottom, which, similar to the delete field, you're going to have to put in a confirmation to get it through. Now, in an instance where you have an accidental deletion for a custom field or an entire form, please reach out to the support team for assistance. All right. Now that we have our form, we can go ahead and go over to the Properties tab. One item of note you want to do is make sure that you go ahead and save your form after any change you have made. I'm going to go ahead and hold that off for now. We're going to be able to see here in a minute. All right. So now that we're in the Properties area, we can see that we can go into the column chooser, and we're going to have available to us our different items from earlier. Now, the first one's going to be our high-risk vegetation. Then we're going to be able to move into our number of buildings. And lastly, going to be our risk type. All the way here, bottom. Now, this is what an item would look like when you bring these in. You know, as you can see, we don't have anything selected. Our high-risk vegetation shows our default true value. Number of buildings did not have a default value, so it's currently null. Nothing is showing. And then our risk type, once again, had a default value of none selected. But if I come over here into our second page, we can see I have values that I set up earlier for us. Now, one item of note, of course, as you can see here, you are able to sort, filter, and search between these fields as you would any other column. So these are working just, once again, as any other column. Now that we have those added, we can go ahead and go into our property details to, once again, review that information. Scrolling down to the bottom here, you can see each of our items as we outline, risk type into number of buildings, so on and so forth. One item of note that you can come down here, if I go to number of buildings and, hey, I set it to 0, I'm going to see an error message. Well, that's because I try to put in a number that's not within the value that I set. I can try and to put a negative. Can't put in a negative because I set it up as so. And if I try to put in decimal, that also gives me the boot. So if we ever needed to make any changes, anything could be done so now. Next, we're going to move over to our inspections. We're going to go ahead and leave that for now. No worries there. And just like before, we go into our column chooser, we're going to be able to see our inspection items, which is billable, and scroll down to number of fire drills. Now, specifically, anytime you make a change to a property occupancy user-defined field, it's going to be saved within the properties areas we just saw and be the same forever, up until a change is made, of course. But for these inspection value fields, these are going to be per inspection. So do keep that in mind that if you set this up, so, a question is like a true or false for, is there an elevator? Well, if you set that up for an inspection question, that's going to show up every time for your guys. So that might be better for the property user-defined fields. But for something like, hey, how many number of fire drills has there been since our last inspection? That's going to be a reoccurring question, which your inspectors are going to need to answer every time, which is to be expected. Now we can go ahead and move over to the permit area. And we can also see if we go ahead and hit new, here at the bottom, we have our user-defined fields. We can set this to whatever we need to do, hit add. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and hit cancel. And sorry, real quick, missed that. But if I go ahead and hit edit on an inspection, just like in the permits we saw, we're going to see our user-defined fields here available for us to configure during inspection, after inspection, whatever it may be. And you do also have the option to hide or show, depending on whether you need to see them right now or not. Go ahead and cancel. All right. So one other item that we can do is, of course, like I said earlier, is that these views are going to be available at any place at any time. So if I go over to the inspections and stay underneath scheduled, you can see here, just like before, billable and number of fire drills is going to be available to you. We can also see that incompleted, but since we don't have any inspections completed with these values outlined, we're not going to see anything right now, so we're good with that. So next thing we're going to go ahead and check is reports. Now, just as we said, these user-defined fields are going to be pretty much everywhere that the lookups are going to be available. So similar to before, we go to schedule by inspection account, go to our column chooser, and we're going to see billable and number of fire drills be able to add. So once again, it's best to go ahead and start collecting this data. That way you can not only view it in the property details, but you can go ahead and start making reports on it for the items that you need specifically. So right before we go ahead and leave admin, the way that you go ahead and add these user-defined fields to your templates is going to be just like any other checklist, rather. So I'm going to come over to templates. I'm going to go ahead to go to manage checklist. I'm going to just use this top item as an example. And we can see here we have our user checklist, which is everything your department would have made, system checklist, which is Streamline offers by default. And then we're going to have our user-defined checklist field. Now, just like any other checklist, all you have to do is click and drag and bring it in, and it'll go ahead and add it to your fields. And just like, once again, any other checklist, go ahead and sync, make sure to get those changes brought down. All right. Now that we have everything set up and reviewed, we can take a look at the mobile app. Similar to before, we just select an inspection, find the one that we want to go into, and we're going to be able to see that our checklist items of occupancy user-defined fields and then our inspection user-defined fields are going to be available. If we go to the occupancy defined fields, we can see everything has already been added. We can fill this out just like any other checklist question is available. Lastly, we can go ahead and also see our inspection user-defined fields, make changes where we need to here, and just like we were a moment ago, come to permit hit add, and we can see the number of hoses is going to be available to us. All right, once again, if there are any changes made to the form on the admin side, the only thing you have to do is go ahead and hit save, have your inspector that has an internet connection go ahead and switch between two checklists, and then you would be able to see that change made in real time. All right, thank you for coming into our user-defined fields training. This is currently available and already added to your admin modules, so please let us know what you think, and if you have any recommendations for this new module, you can reach out in a support ticket at support@streamlineas.com,